Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome back to the Onyx Tavern vlog series on Ressha Sentai ToQger. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, and today we're actually going to be talking about Ressha Sentai ToQger, the movie Galaxy Line SOS. So yes, this was a film that was released in Japan the day before Station 21 aired. So this is actually taking place between Stations 20 and 21 by terms of the air date. And of course, when we actually look at the film itself, the status quo that has been established with the 6th ToQger, the Emperor being in place and so forth, flows into that rather nicely. Before we actually talk about the plot of the film and kind of what this all means, I just want to take a brief second to talk about the release movies that ToQger particularly has during this time. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people criticize Star Trek Insurrection as being an episode of the television series on the big screen with an extended runtime and a bigger budget. Ressha Sentai ToQger the movie feels like an episode of the television series on the big screen, but with an additional 5 minutes of runtime and no real change outside of the series. It's really hard to actually call this a movie, and the reason that is that it is only about 30 minutes long, which is slightly longer than typical runtime on television, about 22 minutes. The only reason I think it's called a movie is because, one, it's on the big screen, and it's actually double billed as a double feature with Kamen Rider. So in Japan, you go to the movie, you pay for your ticket, you see 30 minutes of Super Sentai, 30 minutes of Kamen Rider, you're there for an hour, therefore it is a movie. But it doesn't feel like a movie. Typically in films, the stakes have to be higher, there has to be something more important going on there. It just has to be bigger in every sense. And other than the fact that it involves a space train from outer space, it doesn't seem like it's anything that big. I mean, this honestly, to me, seems like it started out as an episode of the series and then was developed into a film. And I think one of the more devious things about films, at least in this context of what they're doing, is that typically a lot of these films will introduce a new mecha, which is exclusive to the movie and usually one episode of the series, and is pretty much being sold on that particular weekend. So when this film came out July 19, 2014, now I was actually in Japan, I was in Kyoto at the time the film was released. And the day the film was released, I went to the Toys R Us there, and they had the Safari Ressha, which is the new Zord introduced within the movie. So you could basically go see the movie, walk across the street to the Toys R Us, and go buy the toy. I will also make 2 points on this. One, I did not actually go see the movie while I was there. I just never had the time and nobody wanted to go with me. And two, when I bought the Safari Ressha, I did not get the promotional little button that you were supposed to get. I saw a bunch of other kids that got them, but they did not give one to me. I don't know why. Anyway, moving on. So that's just kind of my little spiel about this as a movie. And I'll talk to you about the plot and how I feel it doesn't necessarily seem like it's an actual movie. So the film basically establishes that ToQger have received an SOS from one of the other Rainbow Line trains, the Galaxy Line. And the Galaxy Line is being hunted down by one of the Shadow Lines that are also in space by the villain of the film named as the Count. So the Galaxy Line crashes to Earth and needs the ToQger's help in order to get back into outer space. But the conductor of the train, Lady-san, and that is totally her name, doesn't feel that there's enough imagination left on Earth that will allow the train to go back up into outer space. So it's basically this race to get the train back in outer space, figure out how to go ahead and do it, all at the same time while trying to avoid the Count and not get killed by him. And that's the general premise of the film. Now, there are parts where I think it goes a little bit deeper than that, and I'll talk about that, but this totally seems like an episode of the series and not something that's necessarily meant for a movie. I mean, you could have this as an episode where, again, somebody comes from outer space, needs to get him back in, and everybody hunted down by a villain. Again, that's a typical episode plot, nothing big and major for a film. I mean, frankly, the final 2 episodes of any given Sentai series seems more appropriate for a film than this particular story. And you know, here's the thing. There are some good ideas in this film that are not really touched upon and pushed to the back for the action set pieces. And what do I mean by that? Okay. So, first of all, Lady San says that she's out of the Galaxy Line, and this is the first time she's been on Earth in 25 years, which is a significant point that I'd like to go ahead and bring up here in a minute. I know I keep pushing this back. I'm kind of all over the place on this. But she goes out, and she notices women looking on their cell phones, a man looking on his laptop, a bunch of kids playing the 3DS and all that. And she makes the point that people only look down now, that they never look up to the stars, and that when they look into the sky, that's what breeds imagination. Now, of course, Mio and Kagura are basically just saying, you know, hey, that's the way it is now. Times have just changed. Things are not the same as they were, 25 years ago when you left. And Lady San is basically saying, well, that's the reason there's no imagination. And I think what this is trying to say, and what it should have refined it in some better way, is that imagination is being hampered by the use of technology. That there is no imagination anymore, or imagination is decreasing because we're becoming so dependent on technology, so interested in technology, that we're not interested in things like I guess science and exploration and creating new things, that we just want to be on our phones and our laptops all day, which is a great social commentary. That's something that you can obviously say about Japan, but I think you can also say about the United States and several other countries, that there is that kind of lack of imagination. I mean, how many people on the internet, including myself, have criticized films, television, tons of other things for having a lack of imagination to them, that, oh, here we go with this. It's just like a retread. And I think the technological age can attribute to that. And the film tries to make that point, but doesn't really go through with it. Lady San's renewal in the imagination of Earth is rekindled during the climax of the film. So again, what's going on is they're trying to get the Galaxy Line back into outer space, and the plan is to raise the tracks over the building and basically jump the tower to get the train back into space. Now, there's not enough imagination for this to go ahead and happen, so Wright has the idea of using the fire Ressha, which I think is a very clever thing to do, to shoot water over the city, and then the vapor, or excuse me, the droplets, or whatever the term that you would use, to create a rainbow. That way, everybody in the city will see it, including children, and then it would spark their imaginations, that the sight of a rainbow will be like, and just get them thinking about stuff, which is a clever bit, I will go ahead and admit. And that's what happens. The Rainbow Line gets enough energy through imagination to go back to take the Galaxy Line back into space, and this renews Lady San's belief in the imagination of humanity, basically. So there is something to that. There is something going on, but the film doesn't further explore this technological thing. I mean, Lady San just condemns it as being kind of an evil and not allowing the imagination to run forth, but the climax says that there is still imagination despite that, but she never kind of goes back and says, you're right, we do have this, times have changed, but there is still imagination amongst people. I was wrong in that. She doesn't concede to that, as you may think. Again, that is really kind of dropped by the wayside within the film. Another interesting thing this film actually brings up is, well, first of all, why is there a Galaxy Line? Why is there a train traveling through outer space? Now, as indicated by both conductor and ticket, basically what happened is when we launched ourselves in outer space in the 1960s, did all this exploration, the imagination of the planet basically exploded, and a new rainbow line into outer space was created. And it actually travels around the solar system and returns to Earth every 25 years. Now, this raises a number of questions because the prevailing thought thus far into the series, and again, I have not looked past this movie or Station 20 or anything like that, but the prevailing thought up to this point is that the Rainbow Line is really just kind of limited to Japan, is what it seems to be like. And it seems to be directly correlated to the memories and the past of our 5 main ToQger. Now, anything beyond that hasn't been explored. We haven't really talked about who Akira works for in terms of maintaining the Rainbow Line. We haven't talked about where the other Ressha came from, particularly the Build Dio. And we haven't talked about the higher-ups who made the Orange Ranger Morpher. There is something else going on there which could be hinting at a few things, but at this point, we just know of the one Rainbow Line. Now, this film can establish that there could be multiple lines out there. So it's reasonable to believe that there is a Rainbow Line working somewhere in the United States, a Rainbow Line in Africa, a Rainbow Line in the Middle East, because they need it probably. There are Rainbow Lines everywhere, fueled by children's imagination, or just imagination in general. So, we have one that is formed in outer space and travels around the solar system. Not to mention, as indicated by Ticket, there are several stations within space in which it is traveling. My question, who is on the train? Who is taking a train every 25 years to travel just around the solar system? They're not traveling to other planets within the galaxy or the universe, just within the solar system, and there are established stations on these different planets. Now, I am lacking most knowledge of Sentai prior to Geki Ranger. But, from what I have seen, it does not appear that there is a reason to assume that there are people living on the Moon, Jupiter, Venus, Uranus, any of those planets. It doesn't seem that anybody's living there. So why is there a train going to all these different places, and why are they establishing stations, again, within the solar system? 2, if there are only children that can view this, which has been established, or in a couple of cases, adults with strong imaginations, why would they be getting on the train? I mean, are we to assume that there is a 6-year-old out there who got on this train and has traveled for 25 years only to return 25 years later? And also, let's talk about Lady, because we still have no idea for the origins of the Rainbow Line conductor and Ticket and Wagon, but Lady says that she's been gone for 25 years. Now, pardon me, but the actress that plays her looks like she's about 17, 18 years old. She does not look like she's 25 or any significantly older age. So what exactly does Lady-san do? She just drives the train for 25 years through outer space, picking up no passengers, and possibly not aging at all, which is another possibility here. And doing what exactly? I mean, I'm not really understanding the purpose of the Galaxy Line, because the purpose of a train is to transport people. Now, if we establish in the first few episodes that the train is created only by the imaginations of our 5 protagonists, then I can believe that it was created and they're traveling around trying to find their home, which is the plot of the series. But I can't wrap my head around the idea of a single train with one person conducting it, traveling around the galaxy, or the universe, or the solar system, which only takes 25 years, and there is nobody on the train. And they don't, even when they talk about their space stations out there, before I can even get into that conversation of the purpose of it, then Lady goes into her whole rant about there's not enough imagination on Earth anymore. Which is insulting, because it's just like in the episode of Super Mega Force. Noah's like, hey, Orion, I noticed your Morpher had extra buttons. Let's talk about it. And the girl's like, no, we're going to go to the mall and do shopping, because that's more important for us to do. It's kind of like that. It's like it's taking the most important element and sidestepping it to talk about something completely unnecessary, is what's happening. And that does bother me here. Another thing that's actually brought up within the same scene of them, because Lady doesn't feel that ToQger are going to be able to help them, but Wright brings up that everybody's trying to find a place that they're getting back to. And he's talking directly about Lady trying to get back into outer space and get her route back online and stuff. But then it ties into the theme of the series, ToQger trying to get home, which I think is the first mention we've had about them trying to find their hometown in several episodes at this point, because we're actually now getting back to what the series is about. So there is a nice connection that is formed there between the characters. For this movie to feature the Galaxy line as a sellable toy, which I unfortunately might have to concede to, that is the only purpose of this film, is to sell toys. There's not much of it within the film. We get the opening, which has all 5 trains. We spend the majority of just with the Lion Ressha, which we only kind of get the interior and a few exterior shots. And we get the Megazord battle at the end. Now, another interesting thing that we have is that the Rangers do use the line change with the Safari Ressha, and they turn to these animal morphs in a way. So basically, the Red Ranger, he has claws on his hand, more of a lion, has the lion patch. ToQger is a panda bear, and she's a full panda suit. And you know, I'm going to be honest with something. For something that I believe is trying to sell me a toy in the Safari Ressha, I have never seen them actually make toys of these alternate modes. And as far as when it turns into the series, I don't think I've never heard anything about these alternate modes being used in the series. Nor is the Lion Ressha, the Safari Ressha, actually being used within the series itself. It doesn't come back. Not even for like a 1-episode appearance. So I find that particularly odd that, again, for something that's trying to sell us products, only 1 product was made and we never see it again. Now, it is established at the end of the film that we will see you again in 25 years. So, really, we have to wait 25 years to see this thing again. I find that, again, a bit odd. But again, we've already gone through the history of the Galaxy and how it makes no sense. I think another point I want to go ahead and make is I firmly believe this film was made before the casting of Akira's actor in the television series. Now, why do I say that? Now, when we actually get the opening of the film, Akira is credited along with his actor, but he doesn't actually do much within the film, and when he is in the film, his actor, Unmorphed, does not actually interact with any of our actors. I mean, consider this. He shows up at the switch tracks to stop the crows and switch the train so it goes on the right track. He's unmorphed, and then he morphs, and he unmorphs again. That's the end of the scene. He doesn't interact with any of our characters. The next time we see him attacking the Count within his train, morphed, being knocked out, and then joining the battle in the Build Dio in morph sequence. And then he gets inside of the cockpit of the ToQger with the other Rangers morphed. And at the very end of the film, I almost called it episode, but at the very end of the film, he is guiding the Galaxy line on the right track in the distance, and is computer generated within the frame. So this tells me that they filmed this before even getting an actor for our 6th ToQger. And really, his purpose in the film is superfluous. I mean, yeah, he does provide, he does help out with the plot, but his character doesn't interact with our other characters. So what's the point of even having him in the film if he actually isn't going to do anything? Because you could have easily put in a different character. You know, you put Hikari in there, or Kagara, or Mio, or anybody, and just have them switch the tracks, have them get inside the train, and have them help pilot at the end. Again, you didn't need Akira in the film whatsoever. And again, when you can take Akira out and replace him with another actor and not lose anything, something's particularly wrong. And so I question the production staff of even doing this film after the appearance of Akira, who, again, is the most interesting character we've had, and 4 straight episodes revolving around his character and what he does, and then we get to the film, and he's not even utilized for anything. So I think that's a particular disappointment. There isn't much else to really talk about the film. Again, it's pretty much what I just explained, with a couple of interesting ideas here and there, and a lot of backstory that really isn't expounded upon. And frankly, given, again, the fact that it doesn't seem to appear within the series, these modes were never turned into toys and whatever, that they're not even going to kind of bother with anything later in the series. So, am I saying it's a bad movie? No, I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but it would be better as an episode, you know, because at least then in the episode you could justify a few of the things that it's doing. But again, for a film, I expect something a lot better, a lot bigger, a lot more interesting than what we've got. Again, it's just a regular episode of the series up on the big screen. So, I mean, definitely go ahead and watch it, but I don't think you're going to lose anything if you skip this and go immediately into Station 21, which honestly is probably what they were thinking. This is totally skippable, and you can actually go into the next episode without having to watch this. I mean, heck, our villains are barely involved. You get like 2 lines of dialogue from the Emperor, a single line from Schwartz and everybody. Again, they're not even involved. It's the new monster from outer space, so... Well, I think I've spoken enough about it, but what do you guys think? You know, have you seen the film? What do you think about it? Am I right in some of my criticisms, or am I missing something far more interesting within the film? So let me know. Otherwise, you know, hey, thank you guys for listening. We will be back with Station 21 for our next episode, and the tavern is now closed.